Well, a very warm welcome to Bristol Eastern Salvation Army for this celebration and thanksgiving for the life of Carol. And we do indeed welcome so many people. One of the first times in a long time we've had to use our gallery. So you are very welcome indeed. We say thank you to the Southwest Fellowship Band for the music making and ministry to us thus far. And thank you to our pianist Dorothy for her playing. Now, as you came in, you either brought a flower or were given a flower to place in some baskets. And as Dorothy plays some appropriate music for us, those flowers are going to be brought forward and placed here on the Salvation Army Mercy Seat. So let's just use these moments for our own personal reflection as those flowers are brought forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you all, those of you who have contributed the flowers to make this wonderful, beautiful display. Carol wanted bright, and I'm not sure if cheerful is the right word, but can we be cheerful, Bram? Yes, because that's Carol, isn't it? Positive, and that's what she wanted. And so thank you all for already just adding to this sense of thanksgiving that we are here together to express for the life of Carol. So let's turn now to our first song, and it's a song which was sung at Bram and Carol's wedding. So it's a song that is very important to the whole family, and it also introduces this lovely quality of love, about which we may be hearing quite a bit, I would imagine, as the time moves on. So if you are able, let's stand together as we sing this song right the way through. Well, we set the scene, haven't we? Positive singing and setting the scene that God is in all of this and that it's all working out together and that God has fulfilled that last verse where we believe with all our hearts that Carol is now in his presence, lost in wonder, love and praise. So yes, we've not introduced God, but we've set the scene, haven't we? And I think now it's probably time that we learn a little bit more about Carol. And I suspect that there's not many people here who will know all about Carol's life. And some of the tributes that we're going to hear will come as news to us, something new that we didn't know. And that's all part of our celebration of her life. So to begin, we're going to begin with Amy, Lauren, Eleanor, Caitlin and Dave as they bring the family tribute to her. Thank you.
A few years ago, getting ready for Christmas, we were all in the lounge. We were all surrounded by boxes, tinsel, and balls. Dad had fetched them down from the loft. Even if, as some of you would know, when Mum met in the factory, the famous Globalastic boxes, where Mum and Dad worked together. Would you believe, older than I am and still being used? Mum shouted out, "I can't find my joy. I've been looking everywhere." We giggled and Dad looked a bit bemused. Mum's joy was a ceramic ornament of the nativity scene, set into the word joy. She loved that and put it on the fireplace every year. And it's been a running joke ever since. And all the more ironic because Mum could always find the positive in any situation. She'd make the best of things. So imagining her without joy is pretty impossible. And I think that's why when I came to write this tribute, it became full of anecdotes. Our childhood was one of laughter and plenty of giggling. In fact, Mum could never tell us off and keep a straight face. Dinner times have always ended up with tears of laughter. Mum was the first to poke fun at herself, from ruining the punchline of a joke or mispronouncing words. Who knew that pilots was actually Pilates? Or a family favourite, her inability to light a lighter despite numerous attempts. Mum has always been there. She'd make the time, no matter what it was. Just between Lauren and I, there have been countless house moves, each one with homemade pasties. Mum made things fun, from driving the moving van and playing with the tail lift to jumping on the sack truck so we could push her around. Once we both got the giggles moving my mattress, so much so our arms became too weak to carry it down the stairs and it slid all the way down, which kind of saved a job. Mum would be so embarrassed to hear all of the tributes today. For Mum, nothing she did seemed out of the ordinary or special. She was just getting on with it, and as ever, taking everything in her stride. When we were in hospital with Mum, the song Count Your Blessings became very special for us. Our time with Mum was spent reminiscing on happier times, and on those many sleepless nights, we tried to swap counting sheep for counting blessings instead. Mum always looked for the best in people and had an amazing ability to make the best of any situation. I count myself lucky for such a kind, loving and caring mum who set the most wonderful example to all of us. Me and Caitlin found it hard to think of a tribute to Mum. There are so many wonderful memories we could share,
or talk about what an amazing mum she was, but it was hard to find the right words to do her justice. So we found a poem that we'd like to share. It's written as a letter from a daughter to her mother, thanking her for all that she has done. It's called Never Enough by Rihanna Almeida. Sometimes I know the words to say to give thanks for all you've done, but then they up and fly away as quickly as they come. How could I possibly thank you enough, the one who makes me whole, the one to whom I owe my life, the forming of my soul.
The one who tucked me up at night, the one who stopped me crying, the one who was the expert at picking up when I was lying, the one who saw me off to school and spent sad days alone, yet magically produced a smile as soon as I came home.
The one who makes such sacrifices to always put me first, who lets me test my broken wings in spite of how it hurts, who paints the world a rainbow when it's filled with broken dreams, who explains it all so clearly when nothing is what it seems.
Are there really any words for this? I find this question tough. Anything I want to say just doesn't seem enough. What way is there to thank you for your heart, your tears, for 10,000 things you've done for oh so many years?
For changing with me as I changed, accepting all my flaws, not loving because you had to, but loving just because. For never giving up on me when your wits had reached its end, for always being proud of me, for being my best friend.
And so I come to realise the only way to say, the only thank you that's enough is clear in just one way. Look at me before you, see what I've become. Do you see yourself in me, the job that you have done?
All your hopes and all your dreams, the strength that no one sees, a transfer over many years, your best was to pass me. Thank you for the gifts you give, for everything you do, but thank you, Mum, most of all, for making dreams come true.
We've been overwhelmed with love and kindness shown to Mum and to us as a family over the last few weeks and months. We've heard lots of kind words and memories that describe a gentle and loving person, which has been so comforting to hear. When we thought about sharing our tributes with you all today, we found it was difficult to put into words. However, there was one that stood out. It's the word that encompasses love, care, compassion and guidance, to name a few. To us, she's simply Mum. Mum, the one who would always be there at the end of the phone whenever you needed her. Mum would often be found sat on the stairs talking with friends or family, always taking time to catch up on the most recent news. Mum, the one who would make beautiful birthday cakes, the infamous lockdown toilet roll cake to ensure I had a cake on my birthday. The toilet roll decoration was Mum's idea to make sure that it met the essential item criteria during lockdown, so I could have my cake. Mum, the one who would always find out a stranger's life story just by offering a smile and listening. Mum, the one who would be there for you even though she may have been unwell, she would always find a little extra kindness and sympathy to share. Mum, the one who would give Dave the extra potato to make sure that he felt loved and part of the family. Mum, the one who would always ask after a friend, treating our friends as if they were an extension of her own. Mum, the one who couldn't sit still, always had to be doing something productive. She had rarely finished a film in one sitting. She painted the whole kitchen during lockdown, including the spice racks and clock. And when we tried to treat her and cook for her, she would be there, pottering around in the kitchen after being told to sit down and relax. Mum, the one who gave gentle guidance, often without you knowing until you thought back. And even now, I can hear her saying, make sure you take every opportunity and make the most of it. Mum, the one who led by example, putting family first and thinking of others, with a thoughtful gift and remembering birthdays and celebrations. She'd even give a little gift for the little ones just to entertain them at a family gathering. Mum, the one who had more resilience than anyone I've ever known, never letting her illnesses stand in her way, always striving to get to the next step or focusing on a family celebration. And so, it's these memories and many more that help us to carry on and to keep Mum in our hearts. I'd like to share a poem that I found called A Silent Tear by Gaynor Llewellyn. Just close your eyes and you will see all the memories that you have of me. Just sit and you relax and you will find I'm really there inside your mind. Don't cry for me now I'm gone, for I am in the land of song. There is no pain, there is no fear, so dry away that silent tear. Don't think of me in the dark and cold, for I am here, no longer old. I'm in that place that's I'm in the place that's filled with love. Known to you all as up above.
Mother-in-laws. According to popular culture, the son-in-law, mother-in-law relationship can be quite difficult, even complicated. The jokes and quotes on the subject are endless. I can't relate to any of them. In this way, and so many others, Carol broke the mould. From my first family roast dinner, where she deftly diagnosed my weakness for roast potatoes, she always made me feel so welcome and part of the family. That was typical of Carol, making those around her feel special. Often not with grand gestures that would attract attention to her, but quietly, with a little word or action that was always just right and made you feel 10 feet tall. A wonderful skill, and one that speaks to her incredible kindness and generosity. While everyone, friend or stranger, was drawn to Carol, the importance of her family always shone through. Her face would light up when talking about Bram, Amy, Lauren, Eleanor and Caitlin. You could see her immense pride in her daughters and the strong young women they've become. We love our girls was a common phrase between her and Bram. Carol also broke the mould with her approach to cakes. The birthday cakes that have already been mentioned were incredible. But she was always also the first to laugh when things didn't go quite so well, such as accidentally inventing the DIY Victoria sponge when she forgot the jam filling, or the Excalibur moment at a restaurant when she, with a flourish, produced an enormous cake knife from her handbag and waved it at the waiter while explaining we didn't need his. I will never forget the look of fear on his face. Laughter and fits of giggles were common with Carol. Her sense of humour was so infectious. Her initial giggles would spread around the room, and before you knew it, everyone would be crying with laughter, without always being entirely sure why. Even when she was unwell in hospital, her sense of humour sustained us. I was rearranging her pillows behind her when a little voice from the bed called out that classic pantomime phrase, "He's behind you," followed by that trademark giggle. Once again, the giggles went around the room, and just for a moment, I was transported back to us all being together at Hungerford Crescent, where the laughter was even more plentiful than the potatoes. That was just one example of the humbling resilience that Carol showed. An incredible lady with a quiet strength who always thought of others before herself. I feel so very lucky. I already had wonderful parents, and I got a mother-in-law who broke the mould.
Well, I know that there is one very proud mum looking down from heaven and just loving the lovely family that is hers. Thank you so much. I know that took so much for you to do, and yet it really blessed us all. So thank you very much. Well, in our next song, we are instructed to count our blessings. And I think that's a good place for us to do that before we then learn a little bit more about Carol. And her siblings, Reuben and Heather, are coming to give their tributes, followed by Neil Babbage, I hope I pronounced that right, who's going to talk about her early chapel years. Okay, so let's stand together as we look forward to that and sing Count Your Blessings. Well, thank you. That was a wonderful sound coming up. I was thinking about mentioning the verse that we sang at the crematorium that, I've never heard before and which really blessed me there. And then I saw, no, it's on the programme, so that should be okay. But yes, we sang the Salvation Army version just then, I think. So yes, the Lord's saying, well, tell them what the third verse was anyway. So here it goes, and it says, when you look at others with their lands and gold, think what Christ has promised you. his wealth untold. Count your many blessings. Wealth can never buy your reward in heaven, nor your home on high. Very, very relevant, isn't it, in our worship today. Okay, so now, Heather. Oh, there you are, sorry. Do come. And feel free to sit down when you're not speaking.
That means you can sit down if you like.
You can sit. I'll stand for a minute.
Right. Good afternoon. I'm Reuben. This is Heather. And just on behalf of the family, we'd like to say thank you so much for coming. It's really great to see all of you here. I know that some of you have travelled a long ways. And thank you too for the band and the pianist as well for taking part. Carol was born just before my 4th birthday. And to be honest, it's a wonder that Carol survived her growing up with a big brother like me. We lived on a small dairy farm near Bampton in Devon and enjoyed life in the countryside. And in the winter, the very cold winter of 1963, we were cut off in our farm for 12 weeks. And when Mum had to go out and help on the farm, I remember playing with Carol, making luxurious tents from blankets and cushions in the corner of the kitchen. When she was older, we sledged in the snow on an old door and crashed into the fence and trees many times. My pride and joy was a little blue and red wooden wheelbarrow, which was the perfect size for a little sister to sit in. But unfortunately, I was not very accomplished when it came to cornering, and she quite often ended up in a heap on the yard. More than once, Carol fell backwards off the swing onto the hard floor beneath when my pushing got a little bit over-enthusiastic. And then in the summer, we played in the fields and the woods, making shelters and digging. On one occasion, we were working a little bit too closely, and the trapping hammer, which I was wielding, connected with Carol's forehead, blood everywhere. A screaming sister, a big brother who had to scoop her up in his arms and take her into Mum. No lasting damage done, I don't think. When she started school, we had a mile to walk to catch the school bus, and Mum would walk with us in the morning, on the morning trip, but we would find our way home along the country lanes in the afternoon. We had a shortcut through one of our fields, unless there were cattle there, when Carol absolutely refused to walk through them because she was so scared of the beasts. One school morning, we had the usual cry, which parents dread hearing. Oh, today, Miss wants us to dress up as a Viking, bring an object, make a cake, etc., etc. Well, Carol had a similar request. Mum says, I need to take cereal. Mum went through the cupboard. What sort? No, said an increasingly frustrated Carol. Some cereal. Mum was at a loss as she questioned and offered lots of suggestions and eventually said, well, you go and find some cereal. At this point, Carol disappeared upstairs and appeared holding a piece of material. Cereal like this, Mummy. Carol must have been about 6 or 7 when we went to Cheverthorne Methodist Chapel near Tiverton for their harvest service. The service had begun and we became aware that there was something wrong with Carol, who sat on the inside of the pew next to the wall. She sat there with her feet tucked up in under the pew as high as she could get them, and big tears streamed down her cheeks, yet she made no noise, which was a trademark of my sister, who bore all her pain and troubles silently and made no fuss at all. And it became apparent that the local church mouse was visiting that Sunday and was stuck in the corner of the pew, running around and trying to get out. It may be this that was the incident which gave Carol her lifelong phobia of rats and mice. So bad was it that she couldn't even bear to watch them on TV. Heather arrived on the scene. Go on.
Oh, you want me to carry on? So Carol was nearly 4, and as I grew, Mum used to take us for nature walks around the farm and pointed out plants by name, and at Easter time we picked primroses to decorate the chapel at Petton. In the autumn we picked blackberries and in the autumn we picked blackberries with homemade crooks, you know, pulling the highest branches down because of course that best blackberry is at the top. And then Mum made jams and jellies, which we would also help endlessly stirring. We also dammed the river, fed the orphan lambs through the garden gate, and played with the puppies, Jessie and Bessie, on the lawn. At age 11, Carol became seriously ill, first with appendicitis, and then subsequently with kidney stones. However, the stones were caused in a different way to most and had to be treated differently. One of Carol's kidneys was completely occluded and the other was partially. So after 3 major operations within 1 year, she ended up at UCH Hospital under the care of Professor Dent, a leading renal surgeon in Europe at that time. So the UCH hospital is in London. Carol's case was hardly known about previously, and so there were lots of tests to find the best diet for her to reduce the build-up of the stones. This was in the 70s, a time of unrest and bomb threats, both hoaxes and real, and on a number of occasions that hospital was targeted. And so Carol, being mobile, was helping some of the less mobile and less able children on the ward when they had to evacuate. She was in a ward together with 2 girls who had brittle bone disease, and the 3 of them used to roam the complex corridors in the hospital and became so familiar with the layout that they became unofficial guides around the hospital. The upshot for Carol was a special diet, which meant that when we went anywhere for meals, Carol took her own little box of goodies, but always said, "Thank you for the lovely tea."
We were in our teens and on New Year's Eve attended a youth event at Wiveliscombe Christian Fellowship downstairs in the cellars. We sat around on bales of hay and enjoyed games and food. And on this one occasion, Carol had got a can of Coke, but clearly it had been dropped because as she opened it, it spurted everywhere. So she put it on the bale in front of her and just sat there in the spray and laughed. Her signature infectious laugh, which she had inherited from Mum. Along with the rest of us, Carol played handbells, guitar, piano, and piano accordion, sang and recited when we had a Sunday school anniversary at Petton Methodist Church, or performed in concerts in a lot of churches and village halls around Devon. Our weekly choir practices were always the highlight of our week, as we sang and played, learnt new songs, played games and enjoyed food together, all led by Auntie Mary and held in various people's homes. When we went out carol singing, we were supposed to be approaching people's houses quietly, but typically Carol, Heather and Mum could not stop giggling, much to Auntie Mary's annoyance. At home, we played endless games of Monopoly, which went on for days, made puzzles in the winter and helped Mum and Dad on the farm. Carol went to secondary school in Bampton, and whilst there, she endured glandular fever. And I remember her lying on the sofa, saying how bored she was. We suggested reading a book, but she said, "I feel so weak." Although she did manage to play a few games with us, like Don't Break the Ice and Sorry, and did plenty of colouring with Heather.
Carol and I used to imitate people along with Mum. I'm really sorry, but there may be some neighbours and people that we imitated. Apologies, but it always ended with hoots of laughter. Once a week, we visited Frida Chilcott in Bampton before our piano lessons with Mr. Randall. We also went on bike rides locally across to Auntie Mary and the Weekses. Often Carol sped ahead and I, smaller and on a bike with tiny little wheels, couldn't keep up. Holidays were non-existent until he was 16. And then Reuben stayed home and looked after the farm at 16, and the animals survived. And Mum, Dad, and Carol and I went to Labdrum Bay. We spent plenty of time down the steep path on the beach and visited the roundhouse à la Ronde near Exmouth and spent ages looking at the shells. Prior to this, our family holidays consisted of 1 day out per week, lots of day visits to Exmoor or local beaches, picnics sat on deck chairs, and from pictures, it just looks a little bit like Carol was not impressed. We did enjoy games of rounders though. Carol and I went on holiday also with Auntie Doreen, Uncle Cliff and Alison to the Norfolk Broads on a typical Broads boat. Carol, being the eldest, took the role of nanny to Alison. However, she did not like to feed the swans, but she did enjoy sunbathing on the roof. It was the long, hot summer of 1976. There were youth club socials to attend when Reuben was driving, and most years we attended Cliff College in Derbyshire in a bus. Mum taught Carol and I cooking and baking, and we had cleaning duties as well, I have to say, most Saturday mornings. This was good practice for us and for Carol, who took on a Saturday morning job cleaning a holiday cottage just down the road, and sometimes when it was too messy, she called me for backup. Carol never liked to help out with the milking, it was too dirty. Feeding the calves? No, she didn't like that because they licked her. Feeding the hens? No, because they pecked her. And feeding the pigs, they were just too smelly. But she preferred dressmaking, which she was very skilled at, typing and shorthand.
In 1981, Carol and Heather came to visit me when I was working in Kenya, incidentally with the Salvation Army. And we took our tour around the area where I worked in my soft-top Suzuki Jeep. On the 29th of July, we were visiting a game park in Meru, where we met and very quickly retreated from a lone elephant bull. We had a picnic by the river and washed the copious amounts of dust off ourselves, only to later realise that we were being watched by hippos. And later in that day, we caught up with the royal event of that day on a small black and white TV. There was also the occasion when a young Kenyan man came up to me offering camels and goats for the girls. According to Heather, she says that the camels were for Carol. We were also given loads of eggs to take home at every place that we visited, and of course that was only after we had sampled their hard-boiled version as their welcome offering.
Carol helped me to learn to drive, and we would go out for drives sometimes of early evenings. And there was one occasion when I stalled the car on a steep corner near Wimbleball. Some people may know this steep corner. I got out of the car. There was a queue of cars behind, and no matter what I'd done, nothing would make it start. So Carol had to retrieve the situation, but she has teased me forevermore. Carol was living in Tiverton by this time, and then she got married in 1982, leaving home to move into St. Bees, Chapel Street.
I don't remember the occasion, but what I do know is that Carol made a personal commitment to follow Jesus when she was a teenager, and that faith strengthened her throughout her lifetime. Even though we're brought up in a Christian family, we each need to make a specific decision to live our lives in step with Jesus. And for Carol, she absolutely knew that she had done this. And she knew where she was going. And we too have the hope of seeing her again one day. Thank you.
Well, early chapel days, eh? And you pronounced my name right, Babbage.
Babbage.
Yeah, Babbage. Same as cabbage, but with a B. When I was 15, 16 years old, there was this hot young thing that would stand up in front of Petton Church and sing and play her guitar. Who was this amazing person who could just stand up in front of a whole bunch of people, in front of a church full of people, and talk about her faith? Well, it was Carol. How could anyone not fall in love with this girl? But not only was Carol involved with her own church, she was very much involved with the Methodist Youth Club at the time. Now, bearing in mind that most of us, we were too young to be able to drive and very young and probably quite immature. So the Reverend Alan Freeman, who was the vicar of the Methodist circuit at the time, he would ram-pack his car full of people. He drove a Triumph Herald. And I don't know if many of you knew this, but you can get between 50 and 60 people in the back of a Triumph Herald. Give or take a few. Anyway, Carol would come along and we would play simple games at the Methodist Youth Club, indoor hockey with a rolled up piece of newspaper, musical chairs, simple games really, just to get everybody involved and having a good time. And Carol certainly would want to have a good time when she came along. And sometimes on a summer's evening we would go up to the Bryce Brothers field and play outdoor games, rounders and stuff like that, more energetic games. And of course there were our trips to Exmouth, to the putting green. I don't think the putting green's there anymore now, but that was always a good night out on a summer's evening, having a game of crazy golf. Actually, it was crazy golf, not so much putting. And of course there was the carol singing, which has been talked about already, rattling down farm lanes, visiting little rural areas, bringing a little bit of joy and happiness to those people in remote places. And of course, the cars again, they would be ramjack full of people. And I always tried to make it to try and squash in beside Carol. I think perhaps one of Carol's favourite things maybe was our annual visits to Cliff College, as has already been spoken about. Cliff College in Derbyshire. Cliff College is a training place for people who want to train up for the ministry in the beautiful heart of Derbyshire, beautiful place. So we would all jump onto Jimmy Powell's bus and travel all the way up to Derbyshire. It usually take about 5 or 6 hours. Seemed like forever at the time, but over the weekend we would listen to people speaking. We listened to bands playing. We would go for lovely walks in the countryside. We had a lot of fun there. It was a time of refreshment, really, and I think for Carol this was especially important because she was very much tuned into God. Carol was very much more than I ever was. So there we have it, really, the early chapel days. just moving on a tiny little weeny bit, on a personal level as well, I never really realised how ill Carol was towards the end, and I wanted to share some special memories with her, but she was too weak to talk on the phone, so I recorded a little message for her and let Bram play, and I think Bram, she listened to them, didn't she? These memories of Carol that we all have, memories of wife, mum, sister, friend. We will always have those memories with us, friends, and not anyone or anything will ever take those memories of Carol away from us. So that's why for all of us, Carol, she will always be here for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. My knowledge of Carol is increasing by the minute, and yes, I did know that she was very talented musically, and we are grateful for the support of the band today, and for Dorothy on the piano. But the band now, under the leadership of Divisional Bandmaster Norman Cassells, shall I start again? They're going to play the hymn tune arrangement, Guardian of My Soul. And I just thought you might appreciate knowing the words that are actually associated with the tune that reappears right the way through this arrangement. And so here they are. It says, I worship you, God's only Son, who took my sins to the cross so I could be completely free to follow where you lead. Lord, your wounds are now my healing, and I am wholly yours. You know my name and where I'm going, guardian of my soul. I'll follow you, God's only Son, along the road to the cross. No other place can I find grace unfathomed and unflawed. And as I reach the hill of Calvary and see your open arms, I'll know my name and where I'm going, guardian of my soul. Well, thank you for your ministry, band. It was a ministry, and I think we all just wanted to sit and enjoy the aftermath of that, didn't we? Guardian of my soul, I'll know my name and where I'm going. So we're going to look at a little bit more now of Carol's not her birthday, Carol's journey. And we're going to hear tributes that are about the Logos house years. And they are actually from Anne Babb and the officers Maria and Polis. But Tanya is going to read them for us. And then following that, we're going to have tributes from June Hall and Heather Wells, transplant buddies, and Liz Abraham. Okay, so let's enjoy the rest of Carol's journey. Thank you.
And this is Anne Babb's tribute. In loving memory of Carol. I learned to know Carol as a colleague and as a mother figure at the Salvation Army Little George Street Homelessness Hostel, now called Logos House. You were much loved and very respected by staff and residents. With Bram, you inspired and drove forward modernisation and professional development of the homelessness and addiction services, while showing great example of juggling different roles in your life. For me, you were inspirational professional who could handle even difficult situations with love and clarity. You gave a great example how you combined motherhood with your strong calling to support people in need. Your loving way truly connect with people is something very, very special and will always be remembered. You met people with an open mind and an open heart. It was so comfortable to approach you. You had the true skill to listen in order to seek and understand. It is a rare quality that you had. You gave people an opportunity to be properly heard and understood. I always felt that you could accept each person as they are, whilst praying that God would take their life to the right path. You were a great blessing to us as a family, as we suddenly needed childcare. You looked after our young boys with great love and care, and I am forever grateful. You have left a long living legacy and changed so many people's lives with love and care. I'm praying that Jesus will wrap Bram and the girls with his comfort and love. You will remain in our prayers. I know that Carol's love stays alive through you. In 1 Corinthians 13, verse 8, the Passion Translation reads, "Love never stops loving." Rest in peace, dear Carol, and thank you for your lifelong service to express the love of God to others. From Anne, Jonathan, Marcus, and Matthias. Maria and Polis's tribute. It was in the summer of 2007 in Little George Street, or Logos House as it's called today, was Sir Polis and I our first landmark appointment after the William Booth Training College. On my first day of induction, as I entered the social office, I found myself in a place full of residents and staff who tried to help them as much as they could. On that first day, my eyes rested on a lady who was trying, in a polite but firm way, to help some residents to fill out some forms. Something in her humble appearance, in her soft voice, in her quiet strength, touched my heart immediately. Dearly, lovely Carol, your faith and trust in the Lord, your love for your family, to all of us in the hostel and the people who have had the privilege and the blessing to be close to you, follows us until today. Thank you for your love, support and help and friendship, especially in your patience with my Greek English. Thank you for coming with your little beautiful girls to visit me and your lovely prayers and cakes. Thank you for not laughing when I couldn't pronounce Caitlin's name and would say, Ketelin. Thank you for showing me what it really means to minister and serve people at the edges of community with a humble, loving, sacrificial spirit. You brought God's light into many people's lives. Rest in peace until we meet again in the clouds with love and prayers. Maria, Polis, Galina, and Irina. God bless you all.
Hello, my name's Dawn. I'm Reuben's wife. I've been asked to read 2 tributes. The first is from June. Carol and I met in December 2013 in Southmead Hospital when we were both fortunate to receive the benefit of kidney transplants. We formed a bond of friendship in hospital and supported one another on our transplant journeys. We always kept in touch following our transplants and met up several times in the years following. We had frequent chatty telephone calls. I shall miss my friend Carol greatly. And secondly, from Heather. I met Carol at a kidney function pre-transplant. Carol was sat in front of me with her daughter. We started chatting and we have been friends and kidney buddies ever since. We supported each other with our health issues. We went for walks and coffee. Carol loved her coffee, not too strong, no milk. My husband and I loved her dearly. When she popped in to see us, he would make her laugh. She loved a bit of fun. A beautiful friend who would do anything for anyone. I was so lucky to meet her and have her as a special friend. I will never forget her. My heart goes out to Bram, Amy, Lauren, Eleanor and Caitlin. She loved you all so much. Good night, my beautiful friend. Rest in peace.
I feel it's a privilege to have known Carol and to call her a friend over many years and to be asked to pay tribute to her today. I first met Carol when she came to Easton with Bram and a friendship was formed. I started to work at Logos House in 1999 when Bram was the manager and Carol was a senior project worker. I found Carol very supportive of everyone that she came in contact with and had a calming influence on the men at the centre. I remember visiting them in their flat when they lived on site and later when they moved out into their home off-site. We spent many hours together with the girls as they were growing up. Then along came Ellen and Caitlin, and I had Charlotte, and many days spent at soft play, the zoo, each other's houses, and many more. It was when Charlotte was 6 months old and I was due to return to work for maternity leave. I was telling Carol that I needed to find a childminder, which I found quite daunting. She mentioned that she was in the process of applying to become a childminder and being assessed, and that she'd be more than happy to look after Charlotte for me. I could not think of anyone better to do this for me, someone that I knew very well and trusted impeccably, and was really pleased that Carol would be looking after Charlotte, and that she would have Ellen and Caitlin to play with among the others that Carol looked after during the time. Natasha, my eldest, also spent time there in the school holidays and enjoyed her time being looked after by Carol, although she was allowed to help with the younger ones because she was older. Carol was very patient and loving, and both of my girls loved their time now and didn't always want to come home when I went to collect them. When I asked them what their favourite memories of their time with Carol was, Charlotte was visiting Noah's Ark, Hengrove Park and baking, to name but a few. Tasha's memories was also Hengrove Park, something called the chocolate game, and apparently pizza toast originated from Carol, and we still have it today. Even after Charlotte started school, we still made time to spend times together in the holidays as time would allow. As the girls got older and didn't need any more looking after, myself and Carol met up for many coffee and all lunch dates, but I would get told off if I didn't manage to arrange it when Natasha and Charlotte could come with us. I would cherish the memories I have of our play dates and coffee and lunch dates, and Carol will be remembered fondly by us all. Rest in peace, Carol. Now pain-free. I will miss you.
Right, we've all been sat down for a long time, haven't you? Yeah. So it's probably about time that you stood up again, stretched your legs. We're going to sing another song now, and the song is called In Christ Alone. I chose this. The other songs that we've sung today have been chosen by Carol, except for this one and the last one we're going to sing. This one I chose because it's the closest that I could find to what would be Carol's testimony over these last few months. Carol wasn't afraid. What a thing to say. So we're going to stand, if you want to stand and stretch your legs, and we're going to sing this song, In Christ Alone. Now, I have to thank the band for this, because I found a version of this on YouTube. And it's a little bit different to the one that's in the ordinary tune book that they usually play. But I said to Norman about it, and the friends here at Easton have helped to get the music. And I went along to rehearsal. This is the band I usually play with, or in, try to. So they had a rehearsal on Monday, so it should be all right, because it sounded all right Monday. So anything less than Monday ain't going to be good enough. You aren't going to cut it, all right? So just so that you know, there's an introduction before each verse. But you also should know that the introduction for the second and third verse isn't the same as the introduction for the first and the last verse, all right? So what I'll try and do is bring you in. Now, Carol always told me off for conducting. I can't help myself. It's just like a natural instinct. So I might try and conduct you, but just follow the band and ignore me, all right? So Norman, if we can do it, the other thing I should tell you, you'll see it as the words come up. It's difficult for the band because on the fourth verse there's an optional ending because we repeat the second half of the fourth verse, which Norman was hoping that I wouldn't do, but I said I wanted that as well, all right? So we're really going to work them hard, but really this is a song that needs singing well. All right, so we need plenty of volume, people, and if you're not giving me enough volume, then I'll be asking you for some more. All right, okay. was a good sing, wasn't it? Do you feel a bit out of breath? Then you did it well. So we've had lots of help. And we're really grateful for all the help we've had from the core folk here, from Majors Mark and Dawn, from Colonel Sandra Moran, for Mike, who was here yesterday, Reuben for doing the flowers. Thank you all for taking part in the flowers. You know, I was in the hospital, in the ward, when Carol and I, we'd had this news that things weren't going to get any better. And so we talked about some things, as you do, and it went a bit quiet. Not unusual, because I'm a rubbish hospital visitor. I don't know what to say. Can't string 3 words together. And all of a sudden, Carol looked up at me and said, "I want leaves." What? Leaves. I want leaves. What do you mean you want leaves? Well, I went to some funeral once and they had leaves. And everybody brought a flower and put the flower in the leaves. I want bright colours. So I sussed out what she meant, so hence the display that you've all taken part in. So we've had the bright colours, Carol's got her leaves, and you've all taken part. I'm hearing some music from somewhere. Is that me? No? It's the heavenly choir. Probably Carol telling me to shut up and get on with it. Right. So, thank the band for playing that last arrangement. As I said, it's one that I particularly asked for. And I asked Norman if we could have the band today at the crematorium. Those of you who were able to join us there, we had the organ. And Dorothy kindly has played the piano, which is really appropriate because Carol used to play the piano, play the organ at the little chapels that she used to go to and around. And when I conducted a choir in the Salvation Army, when we were married first, Carol used to play the piano for us. But I wanted the band because it's because of the Salvation Army band, in a way, that we're all here today, because it was how Carol and I met. I was playing in a concert in a little village chapel in Colmstock, Devon. Carol was in the audience, there out of duty because her dad had insisted the family all go to the concert. You might remember it, Heather. I think, Reuben, you were in Kenya at the time. But out of loyalty to her dad, loyalty being one of Carol's many qualities, Carol very reluctantly went to the concert. She sat with her family, right on the back row, about as close to the door as you could get without actually sitting in the porch. And I was down to do the epilogue, a sort of Bible reading and short thought that night. And as ever, I tried to link my thought, my little talk, with something relatively topical or current. And to link it with the Bible reading I was going to use and the song that the songsters, the choir, were going to sing afterwards. And that night, the song that they were going to sing was about giving God a chance to help you. So I prepared based on that. Now, as a single lad playing cornet, I was sat on the end, a bit like Martin there, only much younger. Very much younger, yeah. Not difficult to be much younger. Sorry, Martin. So I was sat on the end row, and as all single lads did in those days, I clocked to the audience. And I caught Carol's eye a couple of times during the concert. So when it came for the time for the talk, I started with an ABBA song, ABBA being all the rage back then, saying, "You may have heard the song by ABBA, 'Take a Chance on Me.'" You're ahead of me, aren't you? Take a chance on me. So at this point, I went off script, as I've got a tendency to do. And I looked Carol in the eye, winked, and said, "Well, you can if you like, but that's not what I'm here to talk about tonight." And then carried on with the talk. Well, Carol blushed delightfully. So at the end of the concert, I went straight back to speak to her and found out she worked in town, so arranged to meet her on the Monday after work. I heard much later that Carol's dad wasn't very impressed that I chatted her up in that way during a Bible talk. But I wasn't bothered because it worked, and that was all that mattered, wasn't it? And so we started going out together, dating, I think they call it these days. And I think the fact that I picked her up that first day in my sports car was the deal clincher, Neil. We've rightfully heard many lovely things about Carol, and I'll add to those. Carol had a great sense of humour. And as you've heard, family gatherings and meals always included laughter. The sort of main ingredient to any meal that we have as a family. Mind you, Carol wasn't a great joke teller either. She'd often get the punchline wrong. For example, one of the jokes she loves is the one about the fly. If you know it. But anyway, Carol's version of the joke about the fly is this. What do you call a fly without legs? Well, we were stuck as well. But knowing the joke, I was sort of starting to crack up inside at this point. I don't know, said the girls. I don't know. What do you call a fly without legs? A walk, said Carol. A walk. It's a walk, because it's got no legs as well. So the girls are confused. How can it be a walk if it's got no legs? At which point, Carol was in hysterics. Oh, I got it wrong. What is it, Bram? And I said, what do you call a fly without wings? A walk. And Carol loved that story more than the joke after that, and she could always see the funny side, and you know, she was too humble to take herself too seriously, unlike me. Carol had a great sense of fun and was always there to take the mickey out of me, lovingly, and get us all laughing. Neil spoke about the youth club days. I don't know if you remember the time we all went to Torquay for 10-pin bowling. But Carol loved times like that, but she loved this one particularly when the laugh was on me. Now, this was the first time I'd ever been bowling. For you youngsters, it was quite, you know, you don't have all the amenities you've got these days that we had, you know, back then. It was quite an adventure. We had to drive from Tiverton down to Torquay just to play 10-pin bowling, you know. I'd never done that before. So I was determined to get a strike first time, you know, go and impress the girlfriend. So I went and I launched. Well, what I didn't know was that there's different size holes in these balls, isn't there? And so I went, you know, and it sort of stuck on my thumb. And then ripped itself off my thumb and bounced. I mean, if you've seen the Dam Buster, he's still bouncing bomb, yeah, bang. Heck of a noise. Devon County players on that side, you know. Well, I was horrified. It bounced into the next lane. And bounced again into the next lane. And then rolled down a little gully thing. Well, I was so embarrassed. But Carol soon got me laughing. And I could see the funny side of it. And big meals were always a thing at Lang's Farm, which is where Carol's family lived. And I remember one evening, it might have been Sunday, I think it might have been one of those youth club things, Neil. And we're all sat around the farm table. Lots of people there, you know, as Neil said. And because I wasn't a country lad, I came from town. I was known as a townie. So as far as Carol's dad was concerned, I'd already got off on the wrong foot because I chatted her up when I should have been serious, yeah. Well, then I was a townie. That was another bad mark against me. And I wasn't a Methodist. I was Salvation Army. That was another bad thing, you know. So this came out in conversation. I can't quite remember who made the comment about me being a townie and Carol, going out with a townie. And town and country don't mix was the saying. Yeah, town and country don't mix. Well, I've always been a bit big-headed, am I? And without thinking, I just, said, well, shouldn't worry, Carol. You always said you didn't want to marry a farmer, so you'll be all right with me, won't you? Well, I didn't realise I got told off by Carol. I really got told off after that. Because what I hadn't realised was there was 2 or 3 of Carol's ex-boyfriend farmers sat around the table at the time when I said it. So once again, I really put my foot in it. And then we got married. We both worked in the factory, as someone's already said. And Carol's sense of fun, she arranged for my pay slip to show 0 because of all the deductions. They brought the pay packets round and we all opened, because we'd been doing loads of overtime and everybody was desperate to see how much money they were going to get in overtime. And I looked at mine, I went ballistic. I went absolutely ballistic. I was fuming. You wouldn't believe it of me, I know, because I'm so passive, but absolutely, I was going spare. And I was about to storm in the office and give them what for, and Carol appeared. I said, look at this. I'm going to sort this out. Is it crazy? Look what he's done. It can't be right. You can't take all that. It's just stupid. And Carol smiled her magic smile and said, look at the date. I said, it's not the date, it's the deductions. Look how much they've taken out. They left me with nothing. She said, look at the date. So I looked at the date. And it was April the 1st, wasn't it? She'd had me good and proper. In the last few years since my stroke, Carol's care and encouragement helped me to make a good recovery. Although she always says not to push myself too hard. Coming from someone who always pushed herself too hard. And at times when my brain gets tired, I have something called aphasia. I can't get my words out or I get stuck on a word, So Carol helped me through the embarrassment and frustration of this by making gentle fun of it. And we do a sort of 2 Ronnies type sketch where I'd be trying to say something and she'd be trying to finish a sentence and guess the word I was trying to say. Or else she'd mimic my stuttering speech. And it always made me laugh, always made me smile and ease my frustration, because Carol taught me over the years to laugh at myself. Never really understood the term soulmate until now. Carol has made me a much better person than I could have been without her influence. She's my perfect wife. She's my life. You change the slide now, and we can have that music if it will play, if I've done it right. Carol was gentle, her gentleness contained an inner strength. We hear much today about strong women as if this is something new. Yet there have always been strong women, and I've known quite a few in my lifetime. Their strength didn't come from being aggressive or domineering. It came from quiet strength of character. In Isaiah we read, in quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Carol didn't always have a lot of self-confidence. Her confidence was in God, and God being in her. Henry Nouwen wrote, gentle is the one who is attentive to the strengths and weaknesses of the others, and enjoys being together more than accomplishing something. A gentle person treads lightly, listens carefully, looks tenderly, touches with reverence. A gentle person knows that true growth requires nurture, not force. This is a perfect description of Carol and her work, the way she was with others. Always trying to help, support, comfort. Carol's strength was evident throughout her life as she bore her health problems without complaint, never wanting to let her health stop her from doing all she could and being involved to the fullest. A strength that supported not just Carol but me as well. If you want an example of a strong woman, a woman of faith, a Christian, someone who lived out her Christian faith, then look at Carol, who had all the virtues outlined in Proverbs 31. Does good, not harm. She sets about her work vigorously. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Carol has had an influence on so many people whose lives are the better for having known her. She sowed seeds of God's love. Some may still be dormant, some are blossoming, some have come to fruition. Yet Carol would take no credit for herself. She simply lived as God has taught us to live. The first song we sang this afternoon was one used at our wedding. The other song we used was Oh Perfect Love, the tune that's playing now. The words are on the projector. I'd never heard it, but I found it looking through the Methodist hymn book, and I've loved it ever since. Reading about it recently, I discovered it was written by Frances Gurney for the wedding of two of her friends. It was written as a prayer, so I realised that everyone who sang it on our wedding day were praying for us. And I think if you look at the words, you will see that their prayers were answered. And Carol knows the completion of that last verse, because for Carol the glorious unknown morrow has dawned upon eternal love and life. St. Augustine said, "Since love grows within you, so beauty grows, for love is the beauty of the soul." O beauty, ever ancient and never ever new. So Carol, forgive my tears. We're trying hard to do this as you want. I'm not really shedding tears. I'm not really shedding tears. They're just little drops of love rolling down my cheeks. I love you, Carol. I loved you in all our yesterdays. I love you today. And I will love you in all of tomorrows, because our love will never end.
Love. Over these last few weeks, one thing has become very apparent: the love that is shared by Carol and her family. Time and again, in conversations, on Facebook, that love has emerged and become very real to many of us. Pram and his family have testified to it by their words and by their actions. I should have said two things. The first is love. Alongside that love, strong faith has also been very important to this family. Many of us have been blessed by the Facebook series that Bram has posted, and it became very clear that a strong Christian faith underpins this love. And so I felt it was only fitting that at this point of the day that we link the two together in our hearts and our minds. The epistles of John tells us very clearly that love is of God, and indeed God is love. The love that this family share came from God, and their belief in a God of love made it so much deeper, wider, higher, more far-reaching, because it stretches into eternity, bringing the very real hope that reassures us that Carol is now immersed in that love, reunited with her Lord, enjoying his presence and his favour. And not only that, but this same God love also gives us that sure and certain hope that through their faith, this family will one day be reunited into that love and can now look forward to experiencing for themselves with Carol what she is experiencing now. Romans chapter 8, verses 31 to 39 underlines all of this, I think. Whatever happens in our lives, nothing can ever take us away from God's love. No fear, no pain, bereavement, circumstances, nothing. So I'm going to read that now from the New Living Translation. So it's Romans chapter 8 and verse 31, and it says this: If God is for us, who can ever be against us? Since he did not spare even his son, but gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else? Who dares to accuse us, whom God has chosen for his own? No one, for God himself has given us right standing with himself. Who then will condemn us? No one, for Christ Jesus died for us and was raised to life for us, and he is sitting in the place of honour at God's right hand, pleading for us. Can anything ever separate us from Christ's love? Does it mean that he no longer loves us if we have trouble or calamity, or are persecuted or hungry or destitute, in danger or threatened with death? As the scripture says, for your sake we are killed every day. We are being slaughtered like sheep. No, despite all of these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loved us. And I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries about tomorrow. Not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below, indeed nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus, our Lord. Yes, true for Carol and her family, but also true for all who will believe. Jesus himself said, and you'll all know the reference, John chapter 3 and verse 16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And now, as we bring this service to a close, let's respond to these facts, that wonderful verse as we turn together to our closing song, which is the song, incidentally, which marked Carol's conversion, her reconciliation to God through Jesus. And Major Mark is going to lead us in this.
Great sing together, and a great way to close our thanksgiving for Carol's life. Now, as we know, she was born in Devon, as we've heard, and so the family invite all of you, and we'll hopefully all fit in, if we can, into our community hall, which is just through that door over there. Turn right and keep going, and you're invited to have a cream tea and share with the family in that way. And just a final benediction. And now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound in love through the power of the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen.